Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first lecture of Java programming. Okay, this is an introductory lecture where we'll see the overview of Java programming. Okay, what is Java programming and how Java programming is different from other programming. What are the features that makes Java special? And we'll see some basic things, basic data types, basic program. Okay, how to write a simple program of Java programming in this session. Okay, so to start with, I'm quickly an overview of what are the features there in Java. Okay, so first feature is the Java is very simple. Okay, so if you have already learned the programming languages like C or C++, you will find that the feature of Java is also very simple syntax, very simple structure. Okay, and very similar. If you have already learned C++, so you will find the programs are very similar to the C++, other than the additional features that is provided in Java. Okay, where we'll see it is more focused on object-oriented programming. Okay, next feature is secure. Okay, because of the Java runtime environment. Okay, which runs your Java program. It don't allow your program to access other parts of the operating system. Okay, it doesn't provide any access to, it doesn't affect the other parts of the operating system. That makes the Java programming secure. Okay, second point which also supports secure is that accessing the variables or the methods of a class outside its scope. Okay, so you have the facility to flexibility or the facility to define, okay, which class or who can access which method of a defined class. So that is again one more point which support the secure feature of the Java. Next, most important, which is what makes Java very popular, is the portability. Okay, or other term is used for platform independent. So the platform independence comes we can say the 2 points. That one is that we say that we can compile Java and can run anywhere. Okay, so the object code which is generated is platform independent. That is which is the term, which very common term used for the object code, that is called bytecode. Okay, so what happens in normal programming language, when we generate the object code, that can run exactly in that machine only. The object was generated which is machine dependent, whereas Java compiler, okay, actually generate an intermediate code which is machine independent. That makes it platform independent. So to run this, you need a particular Java virtual machine or Java runtime system, okay, related to the particular machine. So the Java runtime system can run that in any of the platforms. So this code, this compiled code, is platform independent. That makes it portable. So we can compile in any machine. Okay, we can compile using, okay, and can run it anywhere we like. Okay, so that the compiled code is platform independent. That makes this Java very special. So when it initially launched, Java became popular because of this particular feature. Next, Java is completely object-oriented programming, so it supports the major features of object-oriented programming. We'll have a quick discussion on what are the basics object-oriented programming features that Java is going to support. Okay. Next, robust. Okay, robust feature of Java is supported by two properties, that is memory and exception management. Okay, we have already seen the exception management in C++. Okay, where exception is managed a little bit kind of manual way. Okay, whereas in Java we'll see that the exception are raised automatically. So not necessarily you need there is a standard exception, so you don't need the keyword throw to raise the exception. So Java automatically can raise some exception, and there are a huge number of built-in classes of exception. They can handle a particular type of standard exception. So there are libraries of classes for standard exception. So that makes the exception management robust. Next comes to the memory management. Okay, so we have already seen in C++ there are two operators in new and delete, and C also we know that the functions like malloc, calloc and free, okay, which allocate memory dynamically and also free up them. Okay, so it is done during the runtime. All right, so you know that in C++, when we allocate memory dynamically, it's a responsibility of the user or the programmer to free up that memory, okay, whenever there is no use of that memory. Okay, otherwise that memory will still be occupied and will not be able to use for other programs or other functions or modules, you can say. Okay, so that will be occupied. So that may become so. The free up is very essential, but that part is very well taken care by Java by using the concept called automatic garbage collection. So when a Java runtime environment when finds that some memories are allocated but no longer in use, so automatically they are restored to the free space. So that these are 2 points that support the robust feature of the Java. Then we'll see that unlike other programming language which support multi-processing, okay, multiple, we can say the running the processes simultaneously, we'll see that Java supports multi-threading. Okay, so multi-threading feature is one of the things which helps to generate threads for sub tasks that we can perform concurrently. So that is one of the feature of Java. We'll see more about this when we discuss the session of multi-threading. Then distributed is supported by remote method invocation, okay, RMI, which is also an advanced feature of Java. And dynamic is that the spaces, okay, the allocation of memory and shrinking on expansion of memory there are a number of library classes or the storage classes which are there in Java, which can be used for our storing purposes, and whose memory allocation is very dynamic. Okay, like there is no static memory management. So dynamically depend upon the requirement that the memory expanses. Okay, then we can also it can also automatically shrinks whenever the size is reduced. Okay, the number of elements used in the storage is less. So dynamic space and also dynamic initialization, dynamic allocation of memory, all these features that also may supports the dynamic property of Java. Okay, a quick overview of the object oriented programming support for Java. Okay, so if anybody has already gone through my C++ slides, okay, so you can see we have already discussed all these features. So data abstraction, okay, data abstraction says that we should only show the essential features, okay, that a class or a class supports, hiding how it is to be implemented. Okay, then encapsulation, the main feature of object-oriented programming to bind the data and the methods which are acting upon data together, that is encapsulation. Inheritance supports reusability. If already features and methods there in one class and other class need them, so better to inherit them rather than recreating or rewriting these methods. And polymorphism, same name with multiple tasks. Okay, the main the interface could be same, but depend upon the parameter passed, they can perform different tasks. So that is polymorphism feature. So all these features will be discussed one by one whenever we go for a particular session of that category. Now the most important term that is used in Java is bytecode. Okay, so bytecode supports security as well as portability. Okay, so output of Java compiler, as I have discussed, is not an executable code. Okay, the code which depend on the machine, which is on that machine. That okay, yes, this code can be run. Okay, depend on the machine. The instruction of the machine is used inside that. Rather, it's a bytecode, means an intermediate code. So it is a high level optimized set of instruction designed to be executed only by the Java runtime system. We use the Java Virtual Machine, JVM, a very popular name for that. Okay, so when we compile our code, it generates the bytecode. Okay, you can imagine this code as an intermediate set of instruction. Well, highly optimized, well optimized, so that it can perform all the tasks in a faster way. Okay, and Then what we need? We need a Java virtual machine of a particular machine. So when I need to run this, this bytecode is platform independent. Whenever I need to execute this bytecode in a particular machine, we need that that Java virtual machine for that machine, for that particular platform, or then we can run that. So that makes it very portable. This makes it very portable. And question definitely will come that why we need to make an intermediate bytecode and again convert that Java. Okay, so it makes it. This is to just to bring this feature that platform independent. Okay, generate a compiled code that doesn't depend upon the machine. Okay, so that it can be portable. It can be like, you can remotely also access and remotely run a method. Okay, independent of your platform may be different. The machine you are accessing, that may be different. So to get it done, this feature, so you can run your compiled code in the remote machine, provided that remote machine has a Java JVM. Okay, so that is the main importance of generating the bytecode. So with this, let us see a basic program. This program I have taken from the Java complete reference, the first program. Let us analyze the first program, how a simple Java program looks like. Okay, so the first part, you can see that it is the comments. Okay, we have the comments. Always comments are very similar to the comment we have already learned in C++. A single line comment. Okay, always with double slash, and the multi-line comments will begin with slash star and ends with star slash. Okay, so this is a multi-line comment and this is a single line comment. Okay, and we can see that our program is contained within one class, that is class first program. Okay, so we can say that this is the program. This program has this class. Remember, unlike C++ programming, where we can write an independent function without defining class, that is not possible in Java. Java is completely object oriented based. So whenever you want to do something, you have to do through a class, an object, an instance. Okay, and the methods defined within that instance. And a method cannot be in an independent method in Java programming language. That's why we need a class. So that is our first class. Okay, the class first program has the only method that we want to execute, that is the main method. The role of main method remain same as the C++, that is, it begins the execution. Whenever we start the execution, the main method is called. Okay, but here is a little bit a change in the feature of main. The main is no more a simple int main like C++. It is public static void main. Okay, with a mandatory command line argument string. Okay, so public here indicate that we can invoke this method outside the scope of the class first program. Okay, that's why it is public. Otherwise, we can never call the main function outside the scope of class program. That's why the public. Then comes to static. Okay, static indicate that this method does not need an instance of this class to call this or to invoke this. Okay, so operating system no need to create an object, need an object to call this function. So it does need an reference of this class to call this method. So that's why we need to make it static. Then Java, the main function does not return anything. Okay, it does not return anything. So that's why the return type is void here. And there is the command line argument which is passed as a string, an array of string, okay, to the main function as args. Okay, its type is string. Okay, so some people may ask question, why not array of character? String is more powerful. Okay, so the string has many methods which is efficient than the array of character. That's why it's a string of arguments. Okay, and easy to port them into other type for using the built-in methods of string. Okay, and we have only one line, that is system out.println. So next line is the system out.println. So here you can easily see that, okay, system is a class, okay, which has this method println. Okay, with the out is a stream object. So out stream object provides a function to print something to the output stream. This is a very simple one. Okay, so println, there are two methods very commonly used: print and println. Print will print, okay, anything that you provide as an argument. So here our argument is a string. This is a simple Java program, and the control will remain in the same line. When we use println, it will shift send the control to the new line. That is the difference between print and println. Okay, so using system class, okay, an outstream object, okay, we can invoke print or println in this way. So just the dot separate the class name and the stream name, all these things. Okay, so this is the format we know how to invoke any method in Java or any object-oriented programming language. Okay, so this is how we can. So it is simply printing a statement into the output device. So this is a simple Java program. Okay, so I'll just demonstrate this simple program, how to run it. So I'm using the command line interpreter, my command line for running any Java programs. So let's run this program and see the output, how it looks like. Okay, so already I have created this program. We can see that first prog.java is already here. So let me compile it using the command java c or java, we say the first program. Okay, so this indicates that the Java compilation is successful, and let me run it by using Java, okay, Java command with only giving the class name. So when we compile the Java code, it will create the class file. Okay, what you do is a bytecode is a class file. Okay, with the same name as the file name. Okay, so you can see that. Okay, here one thing we should note that whenever we create a simple Java program, okay, the file name, the class which contains the main function, okay, is same as the file name of our Java program, because it is going to create the same class name and it is going to run, because we are going to run that so that we can call all the methods of this class. So we want to call the main method, so we create the object of this object file of this class. Okay, so make sure that the class name is the class name which contains the main is same as your file name .java. Okay, so when we run it, okay, now we'll run it and we can see the output here. This is printing. This is a simple Java program, and the control jumps to the next line. Let me show you if I just change it to the program to the just print instead of println. So here is the program, and I'll do a little modification here. I will just change just a minute. Okay, so let us just change from print to println. So what is going to happen? Simply that it is going to print and the control will remain in the same line instead of sending the prompt to the new line. Okay, so let us recompile and rerun this program. So you can see that it is printing the line. This is a simple Java program, and the control remain in the same line. That is the difference between using print function, print method, okay, and println method of system class. So this is the list of keywords. There are 50 keywords in Java. Some keywords may be familiar to you if you have already learned about C or C++. Some keywords are new. We will be discussing them one by one. So this is just a snapshot. I want to show you that this is a list of keywords available in Java. So data types, Java defines 8 primitive data types. When I am discussing data type, I am also discussing about primitive data type. So it supports 8 primitive data type. These are byte, short, int, long, character, float, double, and boolean. Okay, so in contrast to the term bool used in C++, Java use boolean data type by using the keyword boolean. All right. So the primitive type represents single value. So using this, we can create a single variable to hold the value of a particular type. But it cannot support complex objects. Complex object in the sense the object which represent a real world. Whenever I meant to say that, okay. So we cannot use the primitive type to represent a complex data structure or complex data. Rather, we have to take help of class to do that. Okay. However, when we want to represent an multiple data of the same type, we can take help of array of any primitive data type. Array of integer, array of float, array of boolean type can be done. This data type has been grouped into 4 categories. Okay, so integer, so byte, short, and int and long comes under the integer category. They support integer type, whole number type. Okay, and then floating point number are supported by float and double, character by char, and boolean type by boolean data type. So let us see the data types one by one. So integer, now remember a little difference is there in the integer of Java compared to the integer of C or C++ type. We will not find any support for unsigned positive only integers. You might have heard about the term, the keyword unsigned in C and C++, where when we want to represent a positive integer only, which will never be a negative value, we can use unsigned int, unsigned long. That is possible in C++, but Java doesn't have support to any unsigned. So when we say integer, it can take both type, a positive type and negative type. You can assign any type of that. Okay. Then the Java runtime environment is free to use whatever the size you want, as long as the types behave as you declare them. Now he has given the 4 type for integer to make sure that depending upon your requirement, okay, the way you want to use the integer, you can use a suitable integer. So the range, you can see the size ranges from 8-bit to 64-bit. Okay, so that shows that how much flexibility is provided to hold the value. So use judiciously depending upon requirements. Like you need a small number, don't use long. It is unnecessary. It will unnecessarily slow down your program. Rather, use a suitable one. Let's say you need maximum 16-bit, use short. Okay, you need 32-bit, use integer. You need a very small number. Okay, generally we will see the network informations are in terms of bytes. So to hold a byte information, use byte data type. Okay, so this is how it is distributed. All right. So we'll see the uses when we see more programs on this type of data. So integer numbers are supported by 4 data types: byte, short, int, and long. So this program demonstrates the use of long. Okay, how long value can be held by a long data type. So you can see that we are storing the light speed right here, and the days right here. This is again the example of the complete reference, and we calculating the seconds by providing these days. So this is the number of seconds, and we are calculating the distance by multiplying light speed with the second. So this distance is finally printed by this program, and if you run it, let's see the output. Yeah, the class name is light here. So let us compile Java light.java and let us run it to see the output, how much distance we are getting. Okay, so it's print, you can see this number. So the long is the ability to store very large numbers. So when you need it to store a number of large size, use 64-bit format of long. Okay, 64-bit size using long data type. Okay, this is how the demonstration says that how much what is the size a long can store. Okay, let's next move to the next type, that is floating point. Double and float. Float supports 32-bit storage size, and double supports 64-bit. Okay, almost same as, we can say the same as the long type. Okay. Now double is very commonly used. You can see the maximum library functions, they return in terms of double. Whenever there is a floating point type to be returned or to be computed, it is by default double. Okay, so for a large number you use double for better performance, okay, and float for smaller things only, because for smaller data, okay. Some modern professors it has been proved that okay, double is better, double precision is faster than float, okay. So but again depend upon the size, use the perfect one which is suitable for you. So example of a floating point example, a simple example. So we are storing the array of the area of the circle in a variable a. Okay, so we can say that we all variables we declare as a double. Our radius is we have taken as a constant value 10.8. Pi value we have taken up to 4 decimal places 3.1416, and the final area is stored in the variable a when we are printing the value a here. Alright, a simple program again. Okay, you see that entire thing we are doing within the main function only. Okay, and our class is area. So my file name will be area, and I can run it by compiling the area. So I have already created a file for this. So let me run it and show to you that. Alright, so its compilation is successful. So Java. Okay, so the area by taking the radius as 10.2, this is the value. So this is when printed as double value. Alright, so yes, this is the demonstration of float and double, especially double. Then comes to character. Now character is quite different compared to any the previous programming language like C, C++. Java supports Unicode characters. Okay, that's why the size is no more 8 bytes. We have seen so far that all the character formats support 8 bit, that is 1 byte. Okay, but here Java is 16 bit type. Okay, the character of Java is 16, so it ranges from 0 to 65536, and it will support the standard set of ASCII characters as well as the extensions. Okay, so ASCII ranges from 0 to 127, and the extension 8-bit character sets, ISO Latin characters ranges from 0 to 255. Okay, so Java has the ability to support Unicode characters, which is not there in C or C++. So here is an example of Java character. It's very simple. It is printing. You are printing in the numeric format. Also, you can just see this example. It is also printing in the character format. Both formats are acceptable. Okay, we can print these characters. Okay, and let me tell you, we'll see about plus. Has a purpose of concatenation. When you use as a part of string or character, it is used as concatenation for concatenating more than one character and a string. Alright, so that can be used as a part of, mostly it will use a part of a print or println. Okay, you can see that. So both will represent. So it is the ASCII value for x, and for this is a y character, so it will print both x and y. Okay, this program, and the second one, you can see that it is not only it can be represented as a character, but also we can use the incremental operator, the arithmetic incremental operator, to represent the next character. Okay, so we can do this operation as well in Java. Coming to the Boolean type, which is same as the bool type in C++. Okay, it supports only 2 values, that is false or true. Okay, both are in small cases. Okay, make sure that because the program languages are case sensitive, make sure that it is not capital F or capital true. If anybody is acquainted with the Python, you know that this is capital F and capital true. So both are small, false and true. Okay, so a Boolean value can hold only 2 things, true or value, and we already know that the written any expression which is used as a part of conditional statement of if, it returns automatically, it is converted into by default the Boolean type. So you put any expression inside if, okay, doesn't matter, the output, depending on the value of the output, it is converted into, the automatic type conversion is done into the Boolean type, either it's true or false, depending upon its value of the output. All right, so you can see the examples here. The examples show demonstration of how we can use the Boolean type. So yeah, it is true. Here we're making b is equal to false. So we can and remember that we cannot replace false and true here by 0 or 1. Okay, don't try to do that. Okay, but the meaning remains the same, but whenever you need it, you use it as a true or false. Okay, so but expression output will be always be depend upon the truth value of the of the output. Okay, so like non-zero, any non-zero value is true and 0 is false. That still remains the same in Java. But when you need to assign the truth value, always use true or false instead of 0 or 1. Now, Java also support dynamic initialization, means whenever you need a variable to be used, declare that variable over there. Yeah, declaration still remain in Java. So whenever you need a variable, you need to declare it. Alright, so we have seen that we have already declared various type of types of variables so far in our examples. Okay, so when we need, we can declare that. We can declare and use that exactly in that spot. So no need to declare in advance. Okay, so dynamic initialization, dynamic declaration as well as initialization is supported by Java programming language. Now we must discuss this example, this point, the scope or lifetime before going to the next point. That scope, this concept also remains same as the C++ programming language. That is, a scope, a block define a new scope in the Java programming language. Okay, so Java allow a variable to be declared within any block, any scope. So a block defines a new scope. A block is defined by starting a curly braces or end curly braces. That means if I use a loop with curly braces, if I use a control statement in curly braces, all define a new scope. If I declare a variable within that scope, that means that the accessibility of that variable is limited to that scope. It is not at all visible to outside scope of that program. Okay, so that you should be taken. So it is again a way to localize the variable. You know that if I am declaring, I want to localize a variable, I want to keep that, okay, this variable should have the range within this statements only, then I should better use them inside a scope. Okay, that is the best way to do that. Okay, and also it will limit the access. When you are localizing them, that also indicate that you are not allowed to access them from the outside. So automatically it is stopping the unauthorized access to that particular variable. All right. Scopes can be nested. Okay, so one scope can have another scope inside it, and it can define depend upon your nesting requirement. You can nest as many as scope it is possible within your program. Here is an example demonstrating the block scope. A simple example again. So we can see that our main function, main method starts with a declaration of variable x, and we initializing x to 10. If x is equal to 10, then we are starting another, we are declaring another variable within the true condition, that is y equal to 20. All right, and we print both the value here. We are updating the x value here, y is equal to y star 2. Okay, then when we go out of the scope, okay, then what happens? We cannot access the y because y is declared within this if condition. So y is the accessibility, y is limited to this scope only. All right. Similarly, but x is outside available. We can print the x value. We can get the value of x right here. No problem at all. Okay. We can get the value of x. So now another one. This is a simple scope example. Another one of the scope. Actually, this is another program. Actually, I just shown it within the same here. So you can see that bar 1 is here, and bar 2 is been initialized within a new scope, the unnamed scope. Okay, here the scope is a if condition, but here unnamed scope. So here I can access both, but because bar is at a higher level scope, so bar is accessible here. But when I declare bar here, okay, now bar is value is 2. Okay, this local scope always override the global scope, you know that. Okay, so as long as you are inside this, the bar value is 2. When you scope goes out of this, then bar value is 1. So this is the how the block scope of a variable is defined by defining the block. Next important point we must discuss before going to any topic is that type conversion and casting. Okay, there is a little important thing to be discussed in Java about the automatic conversion. Now automatic conversion is happened with the compatible types. Okay, so no need to be bothered about when you are using a compatible type, long with the short, or short with the int, or int with the byte. So they are compatible. Okay, so for incompatible type, you must cast them, just like the type casting that has been done in C or C++. In Java, okay, the automatic conversion will take place if these two conditions are met. Okay, that is, the two types are compatible, belongs to the same group. Okay, destination type is larger than the source. It doesn't happen the reverse. If you the destination is smaller than that, then has to be some truncation, some loss of information might have done, might to be done. That's why it will demand the the manual or explicit type conversion in that case. Okay, so when these two conditions are met, the widening conversion takes place. So when the destination is larger, so the data will be converted into a higher size, so absolutely there is no problem, and automatic conversion is done. Now casting of incompatible type is called narrowing conversion. So you need a type casting, an explicit type casting, when the size is smaller than the source. The destination size is smaller than the source. So in that case, what you are doing is actually you are narrowing down, you are truncating, you are narrowing down the conversion, so that some information maybe at the higher significant bits might be lost during this conversion. Okay, so casting syntax is very common to the syntax that is used in C++. That is, you mention the type within the parenthesis for just before the value you want to use it. So let's see the example of a conversion. Okay, we declare a variable with byte b, okay, an integer I holding the value 257, and a double 323142. All right. So first is that we convert into byte type. All right, we convert this into byte type, then we into integer type, and then the double into, so all then a double into integer type, and double into byte type. Okay, let's see the output of this example. Okay, so then we're going to analyze that how it happens. Okay, so let me compile, let me clear the screen first so that I can see the output properly. So the name is conversion.java. Okay, let me run it. Okay, first one is, we know that, okay, converting into the byte type. So converting integer into byte. Okay, so you can see the size is 257. The byte is supports only 8 bit, 1 byte. Okay, so this size is larger than that. So when the size is larger than the maximum limit of a data type, so a modulus is applied. Okay, so byte is applying, byte maximum limit is 256, so it applies a modulus on 256. All right, so when you apply 256 modulus on 257, the output is, the remainder is 1. That's why you see that the B stores the output here. I is your you can see that I is 257, but the byte converted into the byte format of the integer value is 1. So 257 modulus 256. This is, you must remember very carefully. Similarly, you can see that this conversion is the second conversion is very similar to the conversion we have seen in our previous programming language. When a double is assigned to an integer, the decimal parts are truncated, simply truncated. Alright, now again, when you convert a double type also into the byte type, the same method is applied. Okay, it is apply the modulus, okay, modulus on 256. When the size is less than 256, exactly you will get the same value. But when the size is more than 256, beyond the size of the byte, okay, then the modulus is applied and the remainder is stored. So when we apply on the integer part a modulus with the 256, you will get 67. This is the output of, okay, converting a double type into byte type. Okay, so you must remember this is how the conversions behave in Java. Then comes to the one point we must discuss, that is automatic type promotion. So look at this example, if a code, a byte 40, then B variable a byte type holding 50, again C a byte type 100. Okay, then we say integer D equal to we want to store, the target is of integer type. Now what will the type of the sub-expression A star be? The question is here. This is special in Java. So whenever a sub-expression is evaluated, it first converted into the promotion, automatic type promotion is done to the destination type. So what is the destination type here? Integer type. So first the type is promoted, the sub-expression of type is promoted to integer, both the operators. So you have the, let's say, the numerator part, this denominator part. Before evaluation, before calculating the expression, the numerator and denominator both are promoted to the integer type. Then the evaluations happen. That is why it is called automatic type promotion in expression. Okay. So what is the type promotion rule? First, all byte or short characters are promoted to integer. So whenever we have a combination of byte, short or integer, all will be first promoted to integer before evaluating the expression. Now if one of the operand is long, then whole expression is first promoted into long, then the evaluation happens. If one of the operand is float, then entire become float, and double is as the highest level. So if any one of the operand is double, okay, or no, the destination is double, so it automatically promoted into that. Okay, not destination, let me tell you, the entire expression. If expression one of the variable contain double, the entire thing has to be come to a double level, promoted to double level before the evaluation happens. Then the destination conversion is done by the type conversion. You already have seen that part. Okay. So here is an example of the promotion, okay, the time promotion, okay. The example we have already seen, similar example we have seen already. So here the byte holding 42, the character holding A, and short with 1024, and integer 550,000, float 5.67, okay, and double, because see here we mention, if you don't mention anything here, automatically text double, okay, that's why we mentioned float F, okay. So D double is 0.1234. all right. The result here we can, so you see that first float multiplied with byte, so this byte will be promoted to float type. Then integer multiplied with character, divided by character, so this will be promoted to the integer type. Similarly here D with S, so this S will be promoted to the double type. Okay, so then the entire result has to be in the double type before evaluation of this one. Okay, so you will see that this expression is obviously converted to double, but this all variables are promoted to double type, okay, before evaluation. So we can see now that here the values, we can see this value sub expression values, so that we can see how the automatic promotion sub expression type promotion is done, okay, before evaluating the evaluating the entire expression. Okay, so and we have that program with us, yeah, promote. So let me compile the file promote to see the demonstration. Okay, this is the output. So this is the output of sub expression. You can see that. Okay, 238.14. This is integer because the sub expression integer, so it is let me show you. So you can see the I and C, because the highest one is integer here, so this is integer, here double. So first one is float type, this is the float type, the maximum automatic promoted to float type, here automatic promoted to the integer type, here automatically promoted to the double type, and then before adding all of them are promoted to the double one, and the result is stored in the format of double. This is how the automatic promotion of sub expression is done in Java. This is another feature which is there in Java, which is not there in the previous examples. There, you have to do a casting, or okay, the evaluation is done, then it is a type conversion is done. Okay. Then comes to when you want to use it, a number of values, okay, which are sharing the same type. You want to store multiple value, okay, of primitive type, which are sharing the same type. So we can use one dimension array. The one dimension array is very same, almost same as the C++. Okay, that is, we can mention the type, and a array can be declared by mentioning the array name provided with a square bracket, and we mention the size, okay, the maximum size as variable. A one dimensional array can hold the the element, how many elements it is going to hold. Okay, so then when we declare, let me tell you some differences what is there here. So always when we write in this form type variable name and square bracket, that the array variable is set to null, means there is no variable, no element hold by this array variable. Okay, we need to that it is indicate that it's an empty array. Okay, no sizes. So dynamically we can allocate new data. So always here try to use the dynamic type. Okay, so you can allocate, but always try to use the dynamic type. So we can allocate memory, okay, by using new operator. So when you declare an empty type this like this, and you can use the array variable as equal to new type integer or character and mention the size. And remember, all the element the array will be initialized to automatically 0. So no garbage problem, no garbage type problem here. So automatically they will be 0. Unless until you don't give any value, initialization value, they will remain 0. Okay, so here is an example. So I will say you people just this example is taken from the complete reference. So run this program as a very simple example and try to see a demonstration of one dimensional array. It's very simple, very similar to the Java. Only thing is that we don't use a static way. We always try to use a dynamic way. Okay, so here is the declaration of the array, then this is the initialization by using new operator. And we don't have to bother about it, delete. There is no delete in Java. So Java automatic garbage collection takes care about the freeing of the memory once they are been used. They are no more longer in use. Okay. So here is another example. You can go through my slides and see the example. Okay, so we can print any access any element by using the index operation, same as the C or C++ programming. Okay, so here I'm accessing the third index, okay, which is 31. Okay, so Apple has 3 not 31, 3 index means it's 30. All right, 0 1 2 3 4 1 2 3, so 30. So in this way, so index always indexing remains the same from 0 to n-1, whatever size we have given. And similarly two-dimensional, and we declare a two-dimensional by using new operator similar to the new operator we use in C++, as we've seen that, and we can allocate the memory. So no pointer is required here. Java doesn't use the concept of pointer, so you can use the variable just like a normal variable. Okay, and you can use them, okay, to use that variable with the index, depend upon the dimension, use that many of index operation to get the subscript operation to get the value of the element stored over there. So no addressing concept here. Okay, when you try to refer let's say with the 2di, it refers to an array. Okay, it's an array of array kind of thing. Okay, so array, two-dimensional array is array of array, so no addressing concept is you will get that array entirely. You have to store that into an appropriate data type so that you can refer those elements. That's it. And yeah, here is the example of two-dimensional type. We can create manually creating the dimension. That's why I told, okay, that it's array of array, so you can dynamically vary the size of each array. Okay, here I am showing an example, it's same as all, but you can vary the size. Okay, you can in the second dimension you can manually allocate the memory also. All right, here is an example. And there is an alternate way to declare array syntax. So square bracket can come before the variable. That's what I want to show it here. Okay, so when I'm declaring a variable array, okay, so we generally, the syntax is that int the array variable name and then the square bracket. Okay, but we can also in Java we can alternately bring the square bracket before the array variable. Both are equivalent, both represent the same thing, an array. Okay, array variable which is declared by integer type. Okay, so you can see the two-dimensional also same thing. We can bring both the square bracket to the these are square brackets. Okay, I think visibility a little bit because the space is not provided. So but still both are square brackets only. So we can bring the square bracket before the variable, and still this is equivalent and represent a two-dimensional array. Okay, so here is an example. Okay, so this nums is an array. Okay, if you bring the square bracket here, we can the num2, num3 all are arrays. Okay, so that is the benefit. So when I want to declare multiple array, then this particular syntax is helpful. Okay, instead of putting the square bracket after that. Okay, so with this, let me conclude this session. Okay, just overview of the Java. So further doubts you can ask me offline in my offline classes. Okay, please go through it, and any more doubts we will clarify in the doubt sessions. And the next session I will cover up the operators, what are different operators and new operators that is used in Java. Okay, compared to our any previous programming language like C or C++. Okay, that's all for today.